So in a year that feels like a really bad sequel to 2020, one thing that has really been good this year, I feel like, has been the music. Yes, we're about to enter our third year of the Panini, and there's all these variants that are threatening to shut everything down again. But hey, at least we have a good soundtrack to the end of life as we know it. It's that special time of year where everyone comes together and reflects back on the music that dropped in 2021 and ranks them in a cliche YouTube top 10 list. I've been keeping track of my personal list since literally January. It's been something I've been looking forward to the entire year, just like considering everything and analyzing all the music that came out, sitting with it, and really getting a good grasp of like what projects really impacted me the most and what turned out to be my favorites. And of course now I have to give the stereotypical disclaimer that this is my personal list. Everything on here is my opinion. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy in his living room making a YouTube video, so like don't get upset about this video. I feel like if you get upset, it's like kind of weird. If you don't like my list, just make your own list and then somebody else on the internet can yell at you. And it's the vicious cycle and all that. But yeah, we'll be fine. Be cool. Just don't get mad. Don't be weird. And before we get into the top 10, I do want to give some honorable mentions. All of these are albums I thoroughly enjoyed, but it just didn't quite crack my top 10 favorites. I still feel like they deserve some type of recognition though, so in no particular order. Isaiah Rashad with The House is Burning, Chica with Once Upon a Time EP, Roddy Ricch, Live Life Fast, Lil Baby and Lil Durk, The Voice of the Heroes, Nas, King's Disease 2, Conway the Machine, La Machina, Jasmine Sullivan, Hotels, Don Toliver, Life of a Don, Adele, 30, and Drake, Certified Lover Boy. Now let's take a look at my top 10 albums for 2021. At number 10, we have Joyce Wrice with Overgrown. First of all, let me preface this by saying that R&B showed up and showed out in 2021. Overall, as a genre, I really think this was R&B's year. Like, there were so many projects that dropped that were just incredible. And also, the amount of new artists in the space really show that there's such an incredible future for R&B. And one of these new artists is Joyce Wrice. Overgrown is her debut album, and upon listening to it for the first time, it instantly became one of my favorites for the year. I feel like it's just a perfect snapshot of everything that R&B can offer. My favorite song on the album is probably Addicted. Addicted is incredible. It's, oof. Overall, this is a solid showing, a solid debut album for an artist that has a lot of promise. And really, that's a perfect segue into the next entry on this list. Number 9, we have Mariah the Scientist with Rai Rai World. Honestly, this is a very weird sentence to say, but I have to give a shout out to the WWE champion Big E for helping me discover this artist. I was a few months late listening to this album. I was not on the Mariah the Scientist train before that, but one night I was cooking and I was looking at people's Instagram stories, and on Big E's story, he shared this album and said that it was like good for the soul or something. So I was cooking anyway, so I decided I'll throw that album on while I finish cooking. And let me tell you, I had an out-of-body experience. When I first heard the drop on the song R.I.P., I literally screamed in my home. I was in my kitchen, spatula in one hand, jaw on the floor, just having an experience in the middle of my kitchen. It was crazy. Also, Mariah the Scientist is only 24 years old. Like, she was legit born in 1997. The future that she's going to have in the space is so exciting to look forward to. Like, if she's this good now, like, I can only imagine like how much further she's going to go. Besides R.I.P., my favorite song is probably Maybe. I feel like it's the perfect blend of hip-hop drums with the smooth R&B delivery and flow. I feel like the Bryson Tiller trap soul vibes were very much present. The influence is there. And of course, Trap Soul is one of my favorite albums of all time. So I thoroughly appreciate it. It was an amazing album from Mariah the Scientist. At number 8, we have Benji with Smile, You're Alive. I feel like Benji may be like the most underground artist on this list. If you don't know Benji, you definitely should, because he's an incredible artist. He's the brother of Christo, and if you know Christo, you know he's the producer for JID. I think he also works with Earth Gang occasionally. And I first heard Benji on the Spillage Village album that came out last year. He had a really good verse on the song Happy, and I feel like a lot of the themes that were in that verse really carried into this album. And honestly, this album is probably the one that affected me personally the most. Like, it has a very emotional foundation to it, and I was not emotionally prepared for that the first time I listened to it. When I heard it for the first time, it really resonated, and I absolutely cried like a baby just sitting there listening to this. The entire project is inspired by a well-respected Indian yogi named Sadhguru, and the first thing you hear on the album is a question from the speech that asks,
what is the most important thing right now? You're alive right now, isn't it so?
And that's basically the entire message of the album. The title, literally, Smile, You're Alive. That's what it's all about. It's just about like the beauty of life and how precious it is to be alive. The small things about life that make it worth it to keep on being here. And a lot of people aren't here anymore, especially when like the world is in the state that it's in, and it can be awful, but at the same time, like, the fact that you're still alive is literally the most important thing right now. And it's crazy to say, but like, after listening to this album, the beauty of living life was really reestablished for me. And then like, it doesn't come across as like corny or anything. Like, a lot of times when artists like really push a message hard, it can like just come across as forced. But honestly, this album is just really fun to listen to. The song East Side Bounce is one of the most fun songs I've heard this year. Like, listening to it, you can't help but to like feel better about yourself and about your situation. Like, it's just a good time, and like living and having life is a good time. Now at number 7, we have Tyler the Creator, Call Me If You Get Lost. Finally, we have an album I actually made a reaction for. And honestly, that video I made is a little bit misleading, and it just goes to show how much my list has shifted and changed throughout the year. After my first listen to Tyler's album, I was thoroughly convinced that it would be the album of the year. It felt like a masterpiece, and honestly, I didn't see anything being a better work of art than what Tyler's album was. But the thing that bumps it down for me was my tendency to return to it. It's really challenging to really like casually listen to this album, for me at least. It feels like a really expensive fine art museum. Like, you know the substance is there, you know when you go in there you're going to see like these great masterful works of art. I feel like songs like What's Your Name and I Thought You Wanted to Dance are like the Mona Lisas of the project, and Tyler the Creator's like the Da Vinci or Michelangelo or whoever. The way he put it together and implemented the themes that are carried across the entire album really was masterful, and it has like a very high art air to it, if that makes sense. So while the respect and the reverence for the project is there, it's an expensive art museum. So like, I can't go there every day, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need something a little more casual to listen to on a day-to-day basis. And that takes nothing away from the project, and it takes nothing away from how great it is. But when it's all said and done, when it came down to it, I found myself enjoying the albums that are coming next a little bit more than this project. And at number 6, we have J. Cole with The Off Season. I really feel like I don't need to spend too much time talking about this one. If you have watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that J. Cole is my favorite artist of all time. I've spent a lot of time with all of his other albums. And while I feel like this album really wasn't one of Cole's stronger projects, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. My favorite songs are probably Amari and Pride is the Devil with Lil Baby. I love that Cole finally dropped an album with features. I love that he finally killed that meme because it was getting very old. Y'all clowning him about not having features and still going platinum or whatever. And I was also able to see him in concert when he came down to Atlanta, so that was really cool. When he was in Atlanta, he brought out Boz, he brought out Earth Gang, and JID, and they all performed Down Bad off of Revenge of the Dreamers 3. I'm a big JID fan. Earth Gang 2, I love both of them. And seeing all of them on stage together was a super cool concert experience because I can say I saw that and I was there when all of them performed together. At number 5, we have Wale with Folar and 2. I really feel like it's criminal about how under-respected Wale is. Or I won't say under-respected, I'll just say like, if you know Wale, I feel like you give him the respect. I feel like people who are really looped in to the amount of talent he has and the amount of consistency that he has, I feel like you give Wale the respect he deserves if you know that. If you look back on his work, dude's really been dropping a lot of good quality projects. And this album specifically has such a strong cohesion to it. I feel like songs like New Balances, Poke It Out, Caramel, Tiffany Nikes, Dearly Beloved with Jamie Foxx samples, it really all feeds into the following songs so well. The amount of soul that Wale puts into his raps is really largely unchallenged. I feel like arguably you could throw Drake in the mix, but I feel like Wale does it in a much different way than Drake does. And honestly, putting Wale into a conversation with Drake, who is arguably the biggest artist in the world right now, or definitely one of them, like, that's high praise. And I feel like Wale certainly deserves that amount of praise. Also, like, knowing the struggles that Wale has had throughout his career and him dealing with, like, some of the reception he's gotten from critics, I feel like this album was really liberating for him. He's coming into his own, he's learning to love himself and his music. In time, a lot more people will come to respect Wale or like give him the recognition he deserves. But honestly, get on the ride while it's going. Like, don't wait for it to be over. Like, support this man, give this man his flowers. He's absolutely the pride of joy of the DMV as far as I'm concerned. I'm always going to support him and his music. And it's honestly not that hard when he's dropping incredible albums like this one. At number 4, we have Rini with Constellations. If you need a date night album, look no further. When it comes to intimate R&B, this album is literally perfect. Every song is Slow Jams playlist worthy. You got songs like Red Light, Out of the Blue, Butterfly, Talk to Me, Need It. There are so many songs on this album that just encapsulate a night out with a significant other to perfection. It encapsulates like the romantic moments and the closeness that you feel with this person. You could play it during the dinner. You could play it when you're out doing whatever activity you're doing. You can play it in the car when you're going places. The after function, taking them home, spending the night. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just captures all of these moments perfectly. And it's just like a soundtrack that would and should be played in these intimate settings. And honestly, I don't know much about Rini. And then when this album came out, I was just like, oh sure, I'll listen to it. Not expecting that it would be one of the best R&B albums that I've heard in a very long time. He's certainly going to be on my radar going forward, and I'm really excited, again, with the future that is in R&B. Before we go into the top 3, I just want to say how hard ranking these next 3 were. At certain points in time, every one of these next 3 albums held that number 1 spot, and it really took a lot of consideration, and I put a lot of thought into this, damn it. I was stewing over these next 3 rankings, and part of me wanted to give like a weird 3-way tie for this top spot, but I figured that'd be lame. Like, ultimately it doesn't matter, who cares? Just know that all 3 of these albums, to me, deserve the number 1 spot. But at number 3, we have Silk Sonic with An Evening with Silk Sonic. This album's just perfect, honestly. It's just a perfect tribute piece to the days of like funk and soul R&B. I feel like Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak have a chemistry with each other that I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen 2 artists have such a strong chemistry. The only thing I can compare it to, and it's a bad comparison, but the only thing I can compare it to is Jay-Z and Kanye on Watch the Throne. I feel like, in a way, this is like the R&B version of Watch the Throne. All year long, we patiently waited for Silk Sonic to drop this album because we got Leave the Door Open early. That song, for all intents and purposes, is probably the song of the year for me. The way they had a chokehold on the game off one song, that is like the perfect microcosm of the rest of the album. It was staggering. They had like 6 months off one song. And then when the album finally came out, even though there was a long delay, I don't think it detracted from it at all. If anything, it just built up the anticipation, and then the album not only lived up to the hype, but in my eyes, it well exceeded all expectations. Not to mention the videos and the performances they've gotten out of this album. They are just bringing back a style of video, again, tributing what came before, and it's just perfect. The Smoking Out the Window video had me dead. No pun intended. One of the best videos I've ever seen. Literally, like straight up. It's so good. It's so funny. I said this in my reaction video, but it's like a perfect marriage between the old school and the new school. By them looking back at what came before and like what inspired them, I feel like these two created an album that really transcends time, and I feel like we'll be enjoying this and talking about this album for literally generations to come. It's just that timeless. At number 2, we have Kanye West with Donda. Now, it is arguable that from a cultural standpoint, this is maybe the most important album of the year. After a disappointing drop with Jesus is King and a brief hiatus, Kanye came back and put together one of, if not the most collaborative pieces of his discography, and it really rivals his best work. This album really commanded a lot of attention. I mean, the deluxe is literally over 30 songs long. Listening to the album top to bottom really is a whole commitment. And I feel like the rollout of the album captured that feeling as well. For a while, we didn't even think it was coming out. And the man literally went on tour before the album officially released. He packed out stadiums. He packed out stadiums for people to just watch him stand there. I loved it in a weird way. Like, my favorite was definitely the first one in Atlanta, where it's just like the blank canvas and then him standing there in that orange outfit head to toe. I feel like it took away all distractions and really made you sit there and listen and want to know what's coming next. Love him or hate him, Kanye is undeniably a genius. I mean, he's got music on lock, fashion, marketing, like all of it. He certainly has his critics, and rightfully so, but growing up with his music and then seeing him grow into one of the biggest cultural icons of our time really has been a journey. I've enjoyed it. And the fact that he was able to bring out the best in people that made the guest appearances on the album was also incredible. I feel like this album was the album that DJ Khaled always tries to make, but Kanye actually made it. How do you get the best verses from 5 Foreign and Andre 3000 on the same album? Like, that just speaks to the diversity and range that this album has. And even more artists that came and showed up and showed out just made this project so much better. I really think Donda's that great. I really do. I think I need to spend a little bit more time with it, and by a little bit more time I mean probably years to come, and just like sitting with all of Kanye's collective work. But Donda, I feel like, is going to rank very highly, if not the highest, on Kanye's list when it's all said and done. And at number 1, my favorite album of 2021 is Vince Staples' self-titled album. This placement surprises me too. I know, like, there's so many people probably just like smashing their head on the spacebar, but I didn't anticipate this album becoming my favorite of the year. When I first listened to it, it really didn't resonate as strongly as some of the other albums that I've already talked about on this list. But what I love about this album was how infectious it was. I feel like more than Silk Sonic, more than Donda, more than J. Cole, more than whoever on this list, I found myself returning to this album more than all of them. Every time I listened to it, I learned to appreciate it a little bit more. A lot of the music that came out this year was very self-serving and self-indulgent. Like, it was full of itself, if we're being honest. Donda obviously had a very pretentious release. I feel like Tyler's album, just like the environment that surrounds it, like it's good and it knows it's good. This album from Vince Staples is literally just him speaking his truth, and it comes across as really humble compared to the other projects that dropped this year. And it's just 22 minutes long in length. Like, the total runtime of this album is 22 minutes. It's one of the shortest albums on this list. What it lacks in the total runtime, it gains in the digestibility of it and the want, for me at least, to return to it. Like, run it back. Okay, we listen to it again. Run it back. Just constantly on repeat. And I think the beauty in it is the simplicity. Again, Vince isn't doing anything other than speaking his truth and making art from that. The album is telling a story that creates a very strong visual in your head. I feel like when you listen to it, you can see the locations, you can relate to the experiences to a certain extent. You see the people that he's around, that he's talking about. Tells such a great story and is a perfect summation of growing up in an environment that demands you make a choice and prove something of yourself. Either proving that you're going to be relegated to this place, or proving that you're going to dodge like certain obstacles that are in there. Vince tells the story about him acting out in a way that was just seeking like the approval of his peers. And then when he finally like rejects that, it ends up saving not only his life, but a lot of their lives as well. I feel like this album could easily be adapted into an award-winning film. The imagery it provides Like, you can literally see the movie in your head while you listen to the album. In a year where a lot of the music was really caught up in its own spectacle. It's really ironic that what ended up being my favorite was an album that kind of took a step back from all of that. It was very reflective. Looking back at what was in life, what wasn't, what could have been, what should have been probably, and then what made everything so much better because it didn't. Everybody can kind of reflect back to that and have a similar feeling. And in times like this where like everything is uncertain, it's really beneficial to maintain a sense of perspective. So there it is. That's my top 10 album list for 2021. Let me know what you all think. If you agree with anything, if you disagree with anything, whatever, make your own list and find somebody else to bang their head on their spacebar for you. But yeah, 2021 happened. The music was great. The music was the highlight for me. I love it. I'll say this every year probably. It really was a great year for music. So yeah, thank you all for coming out to this one. We're gonna have more videos coming up soon, so be sure to subscribe, like the video if you like the video, all that YouTube jazz, and I will see you for the next one.